Hey YouTube family and Jan subs, hope you're doing well. I took some time off to attend my daughter's graduation, University of San Francisco. I am so excited because what? No more tuition. I am so happy for her. She did quite well. Graduated magna cum laude. So that is my second child that has graduated. The first was Buckeyes, Ohio State University. And again, my wife and I were free from tuition. So, hey, hope you're doing well. I had a wonderful weekend, and that's why you missed me last week. I didn't tape, but this week I have great news again. Supreme Court speaks not once, but twice, folks. Supreme Court again renders a decision, and the decision is great because just at a time where you're probably feeling pretty depressed as to what's going on, Supreme Court comes and saves us again and says, look, we are the judicial branch and we are going to check the executive. That is good stuff, folks. And so I'm going to digest this case with respect to the first ruling that the Supreme Court made recently in the last month or so. And then I'm going to let you know what I think. So, hey, we got a lot to get to, folks, so let's get at it. All right, so May 16th, 2025, SCOTUS, that is the Supreme Court of the United States, says you cannot remove Venezuelans from Texas without giving them due process. Second time they're weighing in, folks. Second time judiciary is coming in and checking the executive branch, the executive order trying to remove individuals without due process. What is, you've probably been hearing, on the news, what is due process? What is habeas corpus? What does this mean? So what it means is when an individual is detained, habeas corpus means bring out the body, right? Bring corpus is body. So habeas corpus allows you to challenge the government as to why they're detaining you. The government then has to give you due process. I've talked about this before on previous videos. What is due process? Due process is simply notice of what you're being charged with and right to a hearing. That's it. It's pretty simple, folks. And it's interesting how this administration is trying to get around due process. And the Supreme Court is not going to have it, even though the political leanings is congruent, with the current administration. The decision was 7-2, right? 3 judges that were appointed by this administration ruled against the administration. I think that's a testament as to how egregious these executive orders are. They are just unlawful, folks. All right. So the Supreme Court said a couple of other things as well, which is really important. They want the Fifth Circuit, where the case came from, Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. They want the court to make a ruling whether or not the Alien Enemies Act applies. This is what the administration is invoking to suspend due process, to suspend habeas corpus. They're saying that there's a war. I don't think there's a war, folks, and we need a ruling on that, because once the court rules that the Alien Enemies Act doesn't apply, then all of this nonsense is going to be over, disappearing people to different countries, to El Salvador. Just recently now, they disappeared other detainees to third countries like Sudan. There's a war going on in Sudan. Give me a break, folks. So the Supreme Court is mandating that the court make a ruling, number 1, on the AEA, and number 2, they want the court to decide what is sufficient due process. What does that mean? What kind of notice? Because in this case, the government gave them 12 hours notice before they put them on a plane and shipped them off, all right? And the Supreme Court said this is not sufficient notice, and I want the Fifth Circuit to determine exactly what is sufficient notice, okay? So that's 2 things that the court has to do with Fifth Circuit. We're going to keep an eye on this, folks, and I'm going to let you know exactly what's going on, all right? Now, as you recall, the first ruling by the Supreme Court with the Garcia matter, and the Supreme Court said due process applies in these cases, and bring him back. Facilitate a way to bring him back. What I've done is I've put a link in the description box below to the website of the Supreme Court, so you can go in and you can read these opinions, okay? It's available to you, folks. Just go online, read the opinions, so you can decide what you think about these cases, right? So the first ruling by the Supreme Court, SCOTUS, as I did in my previous video, was 9-0. There's no question that the administration cannot disappear people without due process. So that is clear. Supreme Court has spoken that you cannot disappear people without due process, right? That's basic stuff, folks. 9-0 is the ruling. So we know that's the case. What's my take on all of this? My take is that it is wonderful that we are seeing, without Congress checking the executive, because Congress is not checking the executive these days, folks, we have a Supreme Court that's checking the executive. I think it's so important that it may even save our democracy. We have to keep an eye on whether or not this administration is going to comport with the decisions of the Supreme Court, right? Number two, I think the federal courts in general, as well as the Supreme Court, they're not trusting the administration because the government's not being honest here. They're just trying to remove people as fast as they can without any process. And it's not going to happen. So hey, YouTube family and GN subs, so good to see you. And go to my content if you're new to the channel. My name is Humberto R. Gray, attorney at law. And we got good stuff for you. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm getting really close to 100,000 subscribers. And I want you to help me in that effort. So hey, share this on all social media platforms and get it out there if you like my content, all right? We'll see you next week.